Have you ever felt like the things you used to worry about don't matter anymore? As we get older, our priorities shift. And the truth is, many of the things that once felt urgent or important simply lose their weight. After 70, you begin to see the world differently. What once kept you up at night no longer even makes your list of concerns. And there's a kind of peace in that realization. In this video, we're exploring 8 things that don't matter after 70, even if they used to seem like everything. From chasing approval to clinging to old regrets, these things quietly fall away, leaving behind what truly counts. Understanding this shift can bring not only relief, but also a deeper sense of freedom and purpose. Stay with me until the end, because one of these 8 things might unlock a change in the way you think about your past and help you embrace your future with more clarity and confidence than ever before. Now, let's get started. Number 1. Chasing status or titles. One of the first things that stops mattering after 70 is status, titles, positions, and the social rankings that once seemed so important. When you're younger, it's easy to feel defined by what you do, the promotions you get, or the reputation you build. People measure themselves by their careers, their roles in the community, or even by how many people recognize their name. But after a certain point, you realize that none of those things reflect who you truly are. They're labels, temporary, and often more about how others see you than how you see yourself. As the years pass, you start to understand that titles don't comfort you when you're alone. They don't hold your hand when you're going through loss. They don't make your days richer or your heart lighter. What matters more is how you treated people, what memories you created, and how you made others feel when they were around you. Many older adults begin to feel this shift naturally. You might look back at your younger years and realize how much energy you spent trying to climb a ladder that, in the end, leads to a place that feels kind of empty. Not because the success wasn't real, but because it just doesn't hold the same meaning anymore. Take someone like Harold, 78 years old, who spent decades as a high-level executive in a major company. He once believed his job title was who he was. But now, he spends his mornings walking the neighborhood, chatting with neighborhood, feeding birds, and playing cards with his grandkids. No one in his current life calls him by his old title, and he's never been happier. That's the irony. The things you used to think were essential to being someone, titles, awards, recognition, eventually become just part of your story, not your identity. And once you let go of the pressure to be seen a certain way, you get to live in a way that feels more true to you. There's a deep sense of peace that comes from knowing you no longer have to prove yourself. You've lived. You've earned your place. And now, status becomes less about titles and more about the kind of legacy you quietly leave behind through kindness, wisdom, and presence. Number 2. Pleasing everyone. After 70, the need to please everyone starts to fade. And what a relief that can be. In earlier decades, it's common to carry the invisible weight of others' opinions. You worry about saying the right thing, making the right impression, or being liked by everyone in the room. But somewhere along the road of growing older, something shifts. You realize that not only is it impossible to make everyone happy, but it's also not your job anymore. You start to see how much time and energy you once spent trying to meet others' expectations. Maybe it was dressing a certain way to be accepted, agreeing with things you didn't believe in just to keep the peace, or holding your tongue so no one would feel uncomfortable. And at the time, it may have felt necessary. But now, it feels unnecessary, exhausting even, and in many ways dishonest to who you really are. Older adults often discover the quiet power of self-acceptance. It doesn't mean becoming rude or dismissive. It just means you no longer bend yourself into a shape that isn't yours. You speak more plainly. You stop apologizing for your thoughts. You stop shrinking yourself just to fit in. And surprisingly, the people who matter still stay. They're the ones who love you for exactly who you are, not for how well you perform social gymnastics. Take someone like Marlene, age 75 today. For most of her life, she was the peacekeeper in her family, the one who made sure everyone got along, even when it drained her. But recently, she stopped over-explaining herself. She doesn't attend every event out of obligation, and she's noticed something: the world didn't fall apart. The people who truly care still invite her, still love her, and now understand her better. And she feels more relaxed than she has in years. The truth is, after 70, your peace becomes more important than someone else's momentary approval. You've lived long enough to know that people's opinions change all the time, and often they say more about the person giving them than the one receiving them. This freedom of not needing to be liked by everyone is one of the great gifts of aging. It allows you to live more truthfully, speak more clearly, and rest more deeply in who you are. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 3. Outward appearance. Outward appearance, once a central part of how we judge ourselves and others, begins to lose its grip after 70. In our earlier years, looks often felt like currency, something we measured, compared, and sometimes worried about endlessly. Whether it was wrinkles, weight, gray hair, or thinning skin, these things could cast long shadows over how we felt about ourselves. But with time, a new kind of clarity sets in. How you look matters far less than how you live. As people age, they begin to see beauty in different forms. It's no longer about looking flawless in the mirror. It's about having eyes that light up when you smile, hands that have held others through hard times, and a voice that carries calm and warmth. You begin to appreciate how your body tells a story, one that's rich with laughter, pain, joy, and survival. And rather than fighting to appear young, you start to see the quiet dignity in simply being real. There's also something powerful that happens when you stop chasing approval based on appearance. You reclaim your time, your energy, and your self-respect. You wear what makes you comfortable. You show up with grace instead of shame. And surprisingly, others respond to that authenticity more than they ever did to a polished image. Take, for instance, Evelyn, 82 Tara. She spent much of her 50s and 60s buying creams and dyes, trying to cover up every new line and spot. But in her 70s, she let her silver hair grow in, tossed out her scale, and started dressing in colors that made her feel alive instead of smaller. And what did she notice? Strangers complimented her glow, not her weight. Friends said she looked radiant, not younger. Because when you're at ease with yourself, others feel it. And it's contagious. In fact, the obsession with appearance often robs us of the very things that make us attractive: confidence, joy, and presence. And those things, they don't wrinkle or sag. They deepen. They become more beautiful with time. No one remembers the way your cheekbones looked at 40, but they remember how you made them feel when you walked into a room. So, if you're still checking the mirror too often, still judging the creases or comparing yourself to younger versions, you can let that go. Because the truth is, the people who love you now aren't looking at your surface. They're looking at your eyes, your energy, and your heart. And that, after 70, is more than enough. Number 4. Accumulating more money. By the time you reach your 70s, the pursuit of more money often shifts from being a necessity to something that simply doesn't carry the same meaning it once did. That's not to say money isn't important. Of course, having enough to live comfortably, cover health care, and enjoy your day matters. But the endless chase for more, for one more investment, one more property, one more safety net, starts to feel hollow when your time becomes more valuable than your net worth. Many people spend their younger years in survival mode, or in pursuit of goals tied to income, retirement plans, college savings, mortgages, credit scores. It's easy to get wrapped up in financial achievement as if it's the scoreboard of life. But after 70, priorities evolve. You begin to understand that money can buy stability, but not peace. It can buy access, but not joy. And it certainly can't buy time. What becomes clear is that experiences, not earnings, leave the lasting impression. The laughs around your dinner table, the quiet afternoons spent in the garden, the warm conversations during long walks. Those are the moments that define a life well lived, not the zeros in your account, not the size of your estate. Look at someone like Gerald, 76, who worked hard all his life and saved diligently. But now, instead of stressing about growing his savings, he's focused on enjoying them. He takes trips with his daughter, donates to causes he believes in, and treats himself to things he once deemed unnecessary. And what he's found is that using his money to create memories and make life lighter for himself and others is far more satisfying than watching it sit untouched in a bank account. There's a kind of wisdom that settles in after 70, a knowing that the richness of life has little to do with how much you accumulate and everything to do with how you spend the time you have left. After all, you can't take it with you. And no one wants to be remembered just for having money. They want to be remembered for how they gave, how they lived, and how they made others feel. So, if you're still caught up in the cycle of financial comparison, or still pushing for just a little more, maybe it's time to ask, what's the money really for now? And what would it mean to stop accumulating and start enjoying? If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment from where you are watching this video. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 5. Holding on to old grudges. One of the heaviest things people carry into their later years, yet one of the least useful, is an old grudge. After 70, the need to keep score, stay angry, or relive past wrongs starts to feel more like a burden than a defense. You begin to see how much energy it takes to stay upset, and how little it actually gives you in return. Grudges often come from real pain, a betrayal, a harsh word, a broken relationship. These things cut deep, and for years you may have held on to that pain as a way of protecting yourself, or making sense of what happened. But at some point, the question becomes, is this anger still protecting you, or is it just keeping you from peace? Aging has a way of softening sharp edges. You start to care less about who was right, and more about how much time you've lost being stuck in the past. You begin to realize that forgiveness isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about releasing your own heart from the grip of old wounds. It's about choosing freedom over bitterness. Consider someone like Doris, 81, who didn't speak to her sister for over 30 years because of a family argument that escalated far beyond its original cause. When her health began to decline, she reached out, not to reopen the wound, but to finally let it go. They talked. They cried. They laughed again. And in those final years together, they found a closeness that neither of them thought was possible anymore. All because one of them decided to stop holding on. Letting go doesn't mean you forget what happened. It means you stop letting it define you. The anger, the resentment, they may have felt justified at the time, but now they just take up space where peace could be. They cloud your relationships, your sleep, even your joy. And after 70, joy is something worth protecting. The truth is, no one gets through life without being hurt. But not everyone gets the gift of growing old enough to choose how they carry that hurt. You can carry it like a weight, or you can set it down like a stone you no longer need. What matters more now is ease and forgiving, not for the sake of the past, but for the sake of your present, may be one of the most powerful ways to give that to yourself. Number 6. Trying to control everything. One of the most liberating truths that sinks in after 70 is this: control is mostly an illusion. In your younger years, you may have tried to manage everything: your schedule, your children, your finances, your health, even the future itself. You planned, you adjusted, and you worked hard to make sure life went according to script. But over time, life teaches you something else, that no matter how carefully you plan, some things will always remain outside your grasp. This realization doesn't come all at once. It unfolds. Maybe it begins with the unexpected diagnosis of a loved one, or a moment when your body doesn't quite cooperate like it used to. Or perhaps it's the sudden loss of someone you thought would always be around. These moments can be painful, but they can also be clarifying. Because once you stop trying to control everything, you begin to notice what you can control. And that's where the real power lives. You can't stop change. You can't stop people from making their own choices. You can't stop time from moving forward. But you can choose how you respond to it. You can choose how gently you speak, how kindly you act, and how peacefully you let go of what you were never meant to carry in the first place. There's a kind of quiet strength that comes from surrendering, not in weakness, but in wisdom. It's the strength to say, I don't know what's coming next, but I'll meet it when it arrives. It's the ability to sit in uncertainty without fear, because you've already lived through enough to know that even the hardest days pass. And even the most unpredictable paths can lead to unexpected beauty. Look at someone like Frank, 79, who spent most of his life trying to keep everything just so. He managed his business, his household, and even tried to manage how others behave. But after his wife passed away, he found himself in a space where nothing felt in control. Slowly he learned to live differently. He started gardening, not because he could control how things grew, but because he learned to enjoy the process. He stopped trying to plan every detail of family gatherings and instead focused on being fully present. And in that loosened grip, he found something unexpected: peace. Control can make you feel safe, but it can also make you tense, tired, and constantly on edge. And after 70, what most people crave isn't control. It's calm, the kind that comes when you stop clenching your fists and start opening your hands. So, if you've been trying to hold everything together, remember, it's okay to let go. Not everything needs to be managed. Some things just need to be witnessed, accepted, and lived through with grace and with trust. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 7. Keeping up with trends. One of the quiet freedoms that comes with age is realizing you don't have to keep up anymore. Not with fashion, not with the latest apps, not with what's trending on television or social media. After 70, the pressure to stay current begins to feel more like noise and less like something that actually adds value to your life. In your younger years, it might have felt important to stay on top of what's new. Maybe you changed your wardrobe to match the times, adopted new habits because everyone else was doing it, or felt the need to stay in the loop just to feel relevant. But now relevance is defined differently. It's not about being up to date. It's about being deeply present. And presence doesn't go out of style. Think about how much energy is spent trying to adapt to trends that change faster than the seasons. You buy something new only for it to be outdated next month. You try out some new app everyone's talking about, only to find it doesn't make your life any better. The chase can be exhausting and ultimately unrewarding. But when you stop trying to keep up, you start noticing what actually brings you joy. You pull out the clothes you like wearing, not because they're in fashion, but because they feel like you. You reread the books that moved you. You listen to music that reminds you of a simpler time. You focus less on what's trending and more on what's timeless. Look at Walter, age 84. His grandchildren used to tease him for still wearing his old flannel shirts and listening to records on his turntable. But eventually they started asking questions. What's that song? Why do you wear those boots? They began to see that what once seemed outdated was actually authentic. And that authenticity drew them in more than any trend ever could. The truth is, trends are built on the idea that we're not enough unless we change. But after 70, you realize you are enough, just as you are. Your experiences, your stories, your way of being, they carry a richness that no new gadget or look could ever replace. So, if you've been feeling out of the loop, or wondering if you're missing something by not keeping up, here's the truth. You're not missing anything that matters. What's meaningful now isn't how current you are. It's how connected you are, to yourself, to others, to what really lasts. Number 8. Always being busy or productive. In a world that constantly glorifies hustle and productivity, one of the most radical things you can do after 70 is to stop. Not because you've given up, but because you finally realize constant busyness doesn't always equal a meaningful life. When you're younger, being busy often feels like a badge of honor. You fill every hour with to-do lists, appointments, errands, obligations. There's pride in being in demand, in always having somewhere to be or something to do. But as you age, you begin to question, what's the cost of all that movement? You start to notice that some of the most valuable moments happen when you're not busy. A quiet cup of coffee in the morning sun, a slow walk without a destination, a phone call with an old friend that doesn't have to end quickly. And those moments, small as they seem, begin to feel bigger than any packed schedule ever did. There's also a deeper truth at play here. After 70, your time becomes more precious, not because you're running out, but because you finally see it. You recognize that how you spend your days is how you spend your life. And filling every hour just for the sake of feeling productive doesn't always leave room for the kind of meaning you crave. Now take someone like Linda, 77. She used to feel guilty if she wasn't doing something, anything. But now, she makes space for rest without apology. She spends her afternoons reading, not racing. She no longer feels the need to explain why she didn't get everything done. And strangely enough, she feels more alive than she did in her most productive years. That's because there's wisdom in slowness, in stillness, in simply being. It's where your body finds ease, your mind finds clarity, and your spirit finds rest. And in a culture that tells us to constantly do more, choosing to pause is an act of deep courage. So if you've been feeling guilty for not doing enough, or wondering if you're falling behind, here's something to remember. You've earned your right to slow down. You don't have to prove your worth through activity. You've already proven it by being here, by surviving, by showing up. And now, the most important thing isn't how much you do. It's how fully you live in the months you don't rush through. Final thoughts. At 70 and beyond, something powerful begins to happen. You begin to see with clearer eyes what actually matters. And just as importantly, you begin to see what doesn't. Letting go of the chase for status, approval, or control isn't a loss. It's a return. A return to yourself. A return to peace. Think back on the 8 things we talked about today. Which one felt most familiar to you? Which one are you ready to release? These questions aren't meant to be heavy. They're meant to be freeing. Because the truth is, you've carried enough. And now, you get to choose what stays. You've lived long enough to know that the world won't stop spinning if you slow down, say no, or stop trying to please everyone. What the world needs from you now isn't perfection. It's presence. It's your laughter, your wisdom, your quiet example of what it looks like to live fully, even when the world tells you you're past your prime. But you're not past anything. You're right on time. Right where you need to be. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.